Welcome to the Time to Practice Summer Edition. This series is meant to give you a little weekly burst of inspiration, motivation, or food for thought about music learning and music practice for young musicians each week before we restart Season 4 in September. You'll hear tips from past expert guests, listeners, and even, I hope, tips from young musicians themselves this year, and I can't wait to share them with you. Whenever you listen to this episode, whether it's in the summer or throughout the year, I hope these episodes speak to you and give you actionable advice that you can use. You're listening to episode 128, and today kicks off our summer motivation and practice tips series. So I wanted to set the tone for the episodes ahead by talking big picture and zooming out and maybe taking the 10,000-foot view, so to speak, so that we can all think about making a plan that works for us for the months ahead. Everyone approaches summer and their music learning differently. One size fits all advice will only apply to some people. So I think taking that big picture view and making a plan that fits our family and our situation is very important. So I know we have listeners who are teachers and musicians themselves, and I'm so glad you're here. I hope you can maybe think about this as a conversation to also have with your own families in your studio or an episode to share with them. But I am going to speak today to the parents and caregivers and family members here who are supporting their young musicians as I share the ideas today. So, if you are anything like the families I work with, the end of the school year flies by at quite the frantic pace. There are endless concerts and events and year-end celebrations, and it can be both wonderful and a lot of fun, and also quite exhausting and overwhelming. And I know many families tell themselves, or at least families that I work with often come in and tell me in lessons that they will get more consistent again or have longer chunks of time to practice or more regular practice again once things settle down at the end of the school year. And for many people, that is, in fact, what happens. But there are also other people for who the start of summer comes and they're very burnt out and frazzled, and very understandably, they would like to give themselves a break from all the intensity and take a breath. And that combined with getting out of our structured school year routine can sometimes, for some people, create a situation in which we are suddenly realizing it's time to go back to school in the fall. And we're again telling ourselves, oh, once I get back in the regular schedule and routine again, then we'll have more time, for structured practice or getting our practice in each day. And it can become a bit of a vicious cycle where we always think the next situation we're going to be in is the one that will help us make this happen for ourselves. You may feel like this describes you very much, or just a little bit of it rings true, or only to a small degree, but you can probably understand what I'm talking about. And to be very clear, I'm a big fan of making sure we don't burn out, and I enjoy myself the slower pace of summer. I absolutely understand the frantic pace at the end of the school year and the need to catch our breaths and regroup. So, this is not meant to make us feel badly, but rather to ask us to pause and zoom out for a moment. Maybe while we're regrouping and letting ourselves rest, we can take a couple moments and reflect a bit and do some planning based on some of the things I'm going to suggest in a minute here. So, I do suggest asking ourselves a two-part question or two different questions. First is, what would we like to accomplish over the next few months, or what are our goals? And if your child is old enough to help you set goals and you can do this together, all the better, because then you are helping model for them the skill and the idea that this is how we maybe can achieve our goals or make time for things that are important to us in our lives. If your child is younger, you might be doing this primarily for them until later. A few examples of what you might want to accomplish or some goals could be: there's a piece your child would really like to learn, maybe something by ear, maybe something in print if they're reading music, that you could incorporate into summer practice and they could feel accomplished by learning. Maybe they're working towards a book graduation or a certain piece they're trying to finish learning, and that could be a goal to work towards that in some way that you define together. Maybe there's a technical skill that they're working on mastering, and we could set aside a few minutes from each practice or more focused attention on it over the summer months. Maybe it's more about how practice feels. Like if practice has been a bit stressful or contentious or had conflict involved, maybe a project for the summer is to work on how to make it more neutral or even positive if we can for everyone involved. You could also have a very tangible goal, like we are going to practice X number of days over the summer months, or each individual month we're going to try to practice X number of days, and then we'll set up a little incentive for ourselves to celebrate, or just celebrate, when we get there. My own number one baseline goal for all of my students is that we do not lose any of our skills over the summer and we can stay at our current level. Of course, bonus points are wonderful if we can move ahead, but it depends on each person's situation and how much they're home with their instrument available, what that looks like. So in my studio, there will be a mix each year of who maintained skills versus who took a big leap ahead and took advantage of extra time that they personally had over the summer to do that. But I think if we can keep in mind that we are trying to maintain those skills, just like we try to maintain our reading skills over the summer when our child is young and make sure they're getting that practice in. So then once we set our goals, our next step is to look at our summer. What do the next few months actually look like? Each year might look different for each family. And for some people, as you're listening to this, the next few months looks like a lot of travel and potentially a time away from your instrument. For others, it may look like a lot of time at home with a more relaxed, open schedule. Other people may have time at home, but they have a lot of summer camps or structured schedule that looks different, but similarly full of structure like the school year. Personally, I just sat down myself over this week and mapped out the next 3 months. What does my calendar look like? When am I teaching? When do I have other events? What do I want to fit in with family and friends and other obligations and fun things in life that I haven't scheduled yet, and making sure I had time for those. And then I had a clear picture of how full my schedule was and what kind of goals to set for myself related to music and other projects. Once you get a chance to do that, I think then we have a clear picture of what our schedule looks like, and we can start to make plans and goals that actually fit our real lives. If you're someone who will be traveling a lot, what can you do on your travels to keep yourself going or keep your child going? Can you have a way for them to listen a lot? Can you bring note reading or theory or other learning materials that you could use as activities on travel days? Can you see live music wherever you're going or visit a historical place related to music? And if you're staying in the same place for a while, is there somewhere where you could rent or have access to an instrument and get some practice in while you're there? Sometimes it can feel like things will be easier if we're home and have a very open schedule, but actually, many people tell me that the lack of structure actually makes it harder for them to get the practice in. And it reminds me of the Gretchen Rubin quote that things that are able to be done anytime are often done at no time. So you may need to set up some kind of structure in your day related to music to make it happen. Could be as simple as we practice every day before lunch. You also might be able to make a big leap of progress forward if you can put in some extra practice time or regular practice time on a consistent basis and you do have more time in your schedule. I think summer for some people doesn't involve as many sports or homework or school events, and they really can take advantage of that time and get more done that they wish they had time for during the school year. My best advice is to always get practice in as early in the day as you actually can so that it's not hanging over your head all day or so that other activities don't come in last minute and crowd it out. And then for those who are home with their instrument, but maybe in a more structured daily routine in the summer, you're likely going to still need a structured approach to practice like you did during the school year. Maybe you can practice half in the morning and half in the afternoon or evening, or just remember what worked for you in the school year and adapt it to what your schedule is going to look like at home over these summer months ahead. Once we're clear about what might work for us and what's actually happening in our lives, then we can make a plan to achieve those goals or projects we have in mind for the summer months and actually make them happen. Summer can be a fantastic time for music for so many reasons. There could be camps and festivals and institutes to attend, maybe time to play music with or for friends and family that we don't see as much during the school year, the potential to have play dates or social outlets involving our music. And I think it's just a nice idea to embrace the season for what it is, and especially what it is for your particular family this year. Making music a part of our lives in this season in a unique way can really create wonderful memories and wonderful learning opportunities that don't feel like they take away from summer. They can be woven into the summer that we're already planning to have. for raising a young musician, I think it's very important to keep music alive all year round. How you do that and exactly what that looks like in the summer season may look differently from year to year or family to family. But if we can give our child that feeling that music is a part of who we are and our daily lives and our social lives, even, and is something that gives us something back by bringing us joy or fun experiences or great social moments, that can be a very beautiful way to grow up and have music be a very important part of our lives. I think that's a wonderful gift we can give our children, to weave music into daily life like that. So if you're a family supporting a young musician, I would love to hear how you plan to keep music going this summer, or what fun musical activities you plan to incorporate. You can send me an email, Christine@SuzukiTriangle.com. That's spelled with a CH, and I'd love to hear about it. So to give a short recap, we're just thinking about two things to help us accomplish some goals related to music this summer. And first is to think about, what do we want to have done when we are back to school mode? What do we hope has happened with our music? And naming a few specific goals for ourselves, child-led, if your child is old enough to do that with you. And then once we have established what those are, we want to look at the next few months, big picture wise, and see what is going on and what kind of creative ideas might we come up with to keep music going during the various activities or various ways our summer is going to look for us in real life this year. So starting next week, I will be sharing those weekly practice or motivation tips, and I would love to include your tip this summer. There is a link in the show notes and also on my website where you can submit a tip to be shared as part of this series. Your experience and your insight might really help another family or a young student with a new way of approaching practice, or a new way to incorporate motivation about practice into their musical lives. And you can do that through writing. You can send me a voice memo, or we can set up a short window of time to record your tip together. So however you would like to share your tip, I can't wait to hear from you. With that, I wish you a wonderful week of music making and practice. Take very good care.